Welcome to the Kingdom of Pod. Should San Diego State bolt for the Pac-12 or even the Big 12? Should the Mountain West look at replacing them or perhaps standing pat? The commissioner talked about that. We'll get into it. Plus, some pretty good Q&A on Boise State and SMU that was generated off the last Kingdom of Pod, which you may want to go back and watch or listen to, depending upon how you do it. Just want to mention that, of course, I'm on the Believe Podcast Network. If you choose to download this audio, get it sent to you on your phone, however you choose to listen to it. I'm also broadcasting these on my YouTube channel, and there's been a tremendous amount of traction there. And maybe people are listening to the YouTube videos or watching them. I don't know, but please rate, review it, pass it along, tell me what you think. But I'll get to some of the Q&A about the SMU piece. But I want to first talk about the visit from the Mountain West Conference commissioner last Friday, Gloria Nevarez, who's the new commissioner taking over for Craig Thompson for the Mountain West, was in town and just doing a tour of all the campuses across the Mountain West Conference. It was Boise State's turn. So I thought it was great that she hosted a press conference. I think sometimes first impressions do last. And so I would suggest, having seen what you all had a chance to watch, she looked open, comfortable, confident, and non-disclosing on most issues. And none of that surprises me. She does not have any conference commissioner, FBS football experience, but she's worked at football schools. She was in the West Coast Conference, of course, as their commissioner. So she understands all the issues. She knows the people and players involved. So that's a non-issue. Some of the things that she talked about I thought were interesting as it relates to this issue surrounding San Diego State and whether or not they are an immediate target of the Pac-12 and San Diego State with SMU for that matter. And we don't know that yet. The commissioner has said that the conference has put together a committee of 3 Mountain West presidents and 3 athletic directors who are in charge of should we expand, should we stay, and then putting it up to a vote to the rest of the presidents to deal with that. And I thought she did suggest Dr. Trump from Boise State is on that committee. More on that in a second about Boise State. But, you know, one of her comments was about, well, what do schools talk to you about when they see you? And she said there's a lot of benchmarking. A lot of schools want to know what they have to do to get more competitive and what are other people doing so that they're competitive budget-wise in travel or in sport budgets or other creative ways that they're handling things. And, you know, she did stop short, though, of saying that all schools are growing their program to the max. There are challenges across any conference in America. And in the Mountain West Conference, there is certainly some football-related attendance and resource challenges at New Mexico, at Nevada, just to name a few. Hawaii, I think, has a very uncertain future, but those are all different issues, and at least I'm sure she's got a handle on those. The television question about Boise State is always a good one when there's a change of command, because Craig Thompson cut the deal to bring Boise State back into the Mountain West when they went briefly out to the Big East and then came back without even playing in the Big East. And at the time, they gave Boise State a unfair share of the television revenue to give them the incentive to come back and join the conference. And then San Diego State came back with them. And she was asked about that, and she said they will be talking about that as a group. And I thought by her mentioning that it is going to be a more popular tactic across conferences to have some schools getting a bigger cut than others, that it shouldn't be too unusual for the Mountain West to have the same situation. Now, had it for them to do all over again, I don't know that if they did it today, you know, they would look at it the same way. I don't know that Boise State generates that many more eyeballs than some of the other top schools in the Mountain West Conference right now. But the time that they cut that deal with Boise State was, I think over 10 years ago. And it was a till further notice, infinitum job and deal. So it's not like they can cancel it. And if they do, they're going to have to do some serious negotiating because, as you remember, Boise State's response to the contemplation of canceling the agreement, which Boise State gets a couple million more than the rest of the Mountain West schools, resulted in a threat of a lawsuit on behalf of Boise State vis-a-vis Dr. Trump and Kurt Apsey at that time. So I don't think anything's going to happen there. And I do think it makes a lot of sense as conferences move forward, negotiating these TV arrangements and streaming arrangements. Whoever's bringing the most eyeballs is going to win. Now, at some point, there may be a push towards more parity in college football. That's not how college football was ever started. It's not the NFL. There's no salary cap. The draft in the college football game is to the highest bidder now, not only with resources of program, but of NIL money that is made available to players. The NFL's not driven and not organized that way. So it'll take a radical reclassification of how college football is put together to sort of change, I think, this method of unequal distribution, not only of player resources, coaching resources, resources to a football program, but television money, which in most cases is like 50 to 60% of what it takes to run an athletic department. And the beauty that we don't talk about enough, if you're an administrator, there's nothing like TV money. You don't have to do much for it. You don't have to write reports for it. You don't have to go out and beg money for it. You don't have to host socials and come up with all these grand plans to get people to give you more money. So they love it. They love TV money. And I do think that it's good that presidents get involved in many conferences, especially lower resourced group of 5 conferences, in making these decisions, because there are reasons to take less money and go with better streaming or better over-the-air broadcast networks to gain you more attention for your school. And it's not always about money. And I look at the American Athletic Conference's arrangement and wonder if that was in their best interest now, especially when they've lost some of their higher profile schools. They've got some other schools that are going to need to be built up, and it won't be as easy to build that up on ESPN Plus. And I just want to say this about that, and I'll move on into some of the other issues about whether or not the Mountain West may expand should they lose San Diego State. In just thinking about streaming for a moment, to me, and this was brought up when Boise State left ESPN and went into the Fox relationship, CBS TV, and the coaches brought it up, that the loss of exposure throughout the other programs during the day and during the week on ESPN hurts. And it hurts their image, and it hurts that they're not being seen in airports throughout the country or in every home throughout the country because of ESPN's distribution, or they're not promoted at the bottom of the screen the way other group of 5 schools are that are on ESPN, or in college game day features, or a story in a sports center or on ESPN.com because that game's going to be on ESPN. Or the reminders of, don't forget, this Saturday it's San Jose against Wyoming. We know you don't give a shit, but there it is. Okay. So that is another challenge when you're streaming. How many of us on Thursday nights have just totally forgotten that it's Thursday Night Football? It's on Amazon Prime. And there's a huge percentage of our country that has no clue what Amazon Prime is. And if they're over a certain age, they have no interest in learning. They want to go to a channel, turn it on, and watch it. And they've lived through the rest of their life trying to get rabbit ears tuned in to watch certain things. And they're not going back to sign-ins and logins and buffering issues and fire sticks and workarounds. So I totally get it and understand it. And the ratings for Thursday night's package on Amazon were way down from where they were with their previous broadcasting partners. Back to the Mountain West Conference. I thought it was interesting when the new commissioner Nevarez said that 16 makes her nervous, and that she thinks the sweet spot for the Mountain West is 10 to 12 schools. She talked about playing more conference games or non-conference games against some of the remaining Pac-12 schools could be a good situation for their conference. She specifically stated if the Mountain West lost one or two schools, they could be okay at 10. She also mentioned there are other schools that have indicated they want to join the Mountain West Conference. I think that as long as your television partner doesn't penalize you more than what you gain by splitting the money you have with one less mouth to feed, why would you add anybody? And looking at some of the inventory that they're losing, if it is San Diego State that goes to either the Pac-12 or the Big 12, let's just say they're out of there. Okay, the San Diego State, Boise State, Fresno State games arguably could have some appeal to get decent ratings or whoever the hot school is at the moment. But isn't that about it? Isn't it more of a sell job to get people to care about San Diego State against UNLV or San Jose State or Nevada or just you name the school from the old mountain side of things other than Boise State? So how many events are they really losing there? Do they really need that inventory to bonus clients in and all that? They'll tell you. That's the beauty of all of this. And I want to get back to this as we get into our Q&A about SMU in just a second. Hey, you know me, I've talked to you about this full spectrum health diet and lifestyle that I've changed to. Right now, here I am in Flower Mound, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas. And, you know, I get a lot more sunlight. It's going to be 75 degrees today. And so I like to get up prior to the sun coming up, enjoy some of that. And I like to stop eating after that sun goes down. I also get to get into some cold water for 4 to 5 minutes every day to help trim me down. With the help of Full Spectrum Health, I've been able to change my diet so that I'm more satisfied and eating less as the day goes on and keeping my energy up, which is tremendous. And if that all sounds good to you, the plan's there for 8 weeks for under $200. The diet, the exercise plan, the video, the apps, there's so much you can get from them and a free consultation. So if that sounds good to you, go to full-spectrumhealth.com. That's full-spectrumhealth.com on the internet. They'll give you a free video conference and they'll just talk to you about where you're at, where you want to be, how well you sleep, what your energy's like, what your diet's like, fat, your workouts, and go from there. It's the real deal. It's the only way to go. And I think it will last you a lot longer than I know some of the diets I've done previous, which were hard to maintain over time. Full-spectrumhealth.com. All right, let's get back to some of the Q&A that I was getting into with some of the fans on the YouTube channel specifically. Yes, the Believe Network distributes this podcast. So if you like it to listen in the car or jogging or working or however, great. But I'm also going to remind you, if you want to watch it, and you can listen to it, of course, or watch it, it's at YouTube. Just search Jeff Caves on my YouTube channel. And increasingly, thousands of you are doing it that way. I don't know if you're listening to it or watching it, but I just appreciate you giving me an opportunity to keep you up to date with Boise State football and Boise State in general, in what's going on with the athletic department, at least from my point of view. Life's Sublime asked and told me that SMU, when it relates to SMU versus Boise State getting into possibly the Pac-12, SMU can't draw fans. What a joke. And it reminds me of really the difference between a fans issue and a television network issue or a streaming partner issue. How many fans you get in your stands is of concern to somebody, and it's not always, as long as all things were equal, not always the people making the decision whether they're going to let you into their conference or not. You got to have representative attendance, but they know if you get better games in your stadium, you're going to get bigger and better crowds. Albertson Stadium, I was listening to a podcast with Pat Forty. Great guy. I think it's a funny podcast, Dan Wetzel as well. And, you know, it's hard to keep track of 130 some odd schools. And they were saying Boise State doesn't have great attendance. And then he commented that it was really more about what he saw with the Mountain West Championship game. And that wasn't great. What else there is to do in Boise, all that crap. that I completely forgive and understand because you can't keep track of everybody and everything. But Boise State, whether it's paid attendance that they're reporting for football or not, it's pretty close to being full. And it's been that way for a while, hasn't it? I mean, you start talking about a couple thousand fans, that's a lot of ego that we're pounding on selling out every seat. Well, there's a lot of singles that don't get sold because there's a lot of us that like 3, 5, 7 seats. Well, that kind of changes things, right? With what's left over. So anyway, all of that aside, it's not all about fans in the stands. Oli 911 said the reason the Pac-12 is chasing SMU is the media market size. DFU's number 5, fertile recruiting. The Pac-10 is trying to replace 2 schools from the number 2 media market. This is the same reason San Diego State and UNLV have been mentioned as possible Pac-12 candidates. San Diego may not be LA, but they are in Southern California. UNLV hasn't done squat in football and basketball in years, but they're the 38th largest market and growing. Tourist magnet, gambling shows, money. And despite the Broncos' 3 Fiesta Bowl trophies, wins in Georgia and Oregon, we're still in the 98th media market. True. Let's just not forget this. The people who are offering the money to these conferences and telling them, if you add this kind of school or that kind of school, here's what else you'll get out of us, or here's what you won't get out of us. They know it. So you have to know at some point, if a conference is adding a school, maybe because they're worried about losing others and they want to gobble them up before somebody else does. They just need games because a television partner has yanked their chain and has threatened them to cut down their pay if they don't. So there's all that going on. And a lot of this communication can be through consultants, so everybody can say, I haven't talked to anybody about that. But I think that's important to remember, that nobody knows the television market value of a particular school to a particular conference than the people paying the money. They've got stats that would blow your mind. So we don't have that kind of information and access, and I think it's frustrating. David said, regarding SMU versus Boise State to the Pac-12, of course I think Boise State would be a better fit. Geography, affinity, play on the field. It doesn't have to come down to revenue measured by TV market, though, does it? Corvallis, Eugene, Pullman, not big cities, but they fall under Portland and Spokane TV markets, both considerably larger than Boise. Add SMU, and your conference is now in the number 5 market after losing 2 LA-based teams. It would hurt my feelings as a Broncos fan, but I understand the business rationale. And unfortunately, it's a business equation. That's not great for all fans to follow. It's good for this fan to follow because I find it interesting, but not everybody. And it is all business, and it is not as much about sport or show. But I thought David made a good point. Terry Porter said it's simple as it relates to Boise State not getting in, possibly in SMU, getting into the Pac-12. The Pac-12 doesn't care about Boise State's football success. It's all about the TV market. The Mountain West Conference is where Boise State will be for years. Most fans would rather see an invite into the Big 12 anyways, but again, it probably won't happen. The Big 12 could be on the move, and there is discussion that I think their first move will be to try to see if they can't dislodge the 4 corners, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State, and get them to jump over to the Big 12. Should that happen, you're going to have a big problem on your hands. I think right now, what's going on with the Pac-12 and their lack of ability to name what their TV deal is going to be is they're just waiting them out. There's no hurry. There's a report now that I think Turner and CBS have pulled out. Well, maybe they pulled out because they're not interested and somebody else is already going to get it and they know which direction they're going, so they're saving face. That's all strategic at times, so we can't say for sure. So I think that the Pac-12 is in a tough spot. I don't think they're getting the kind of money that they want, or they would have jumped by now. And they're figuring out how they can get the highest amount of money. And that's great for football in the West. I think it's important. I think it's very important to continue to have a healthy, especially Pacific Northwest appetite for college football. And as more people relocate out of the California, Floridas, and Texases and move to some other communities, specifically in the West, since they bail out of Washington and California and bail into Idaho and some of the other Western states, you're going to see an increase, I think, in interest in football in some of the other states, but it's pretty much just moving chess pieces around, especially with California now. With I don't know how the SC UCLA experiment in the Big Ten is going to work. I couldn't tell you. It's time's going to have to tell. There's going to be a lot of big important games against teams that are 5-4 and 6-3. That's going to take some getting used to. All right, a little longer edition today. I hope you've enjoyed it and stuck with me. Remember, you can get it here on Believe. You can also get it on YouTube. I guess just get it however you want it. I'll talk to you next time.